Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different. We're talking about ideas.
Ideas, yeah.
Not just like what they are, but
Yeah.
like how they shape us and shape societies and even like whole cultures, you know?
Yeah, how they kind of take on a life of their own.
Yeah, exactly.
And we become almost like, oh,
Oh, like we're along for the ride.
yes, exactly.
Okay, interesting. So to kind of unpack all of that, we're going to be checking out a video essay that takes a look at this novel. Have you heard of it? It's called Demons.
Oh, yeah, Dostoevsky. It's
Yeah.
a classic.
Yeah, so it was written in 19th century Russia. But believe it or not, it has like a ton to say about stuff that's going on in our world right now. Like
Wow.
the essayist actually uses this novel to look at the origins and like the impact of political ideas, especially totalitarian socialism in Russia way back then.
Oh, wow.
And it draws some pretty like mind-blowing parallels to what's happening today, like with current cultural trends.
It's amazing how these like really old books, they can still speak to us so directly, you know?
Totally. So the essayist actually starts off with this super powerful quote from Carl Jung: "People don't have ideas, ideas have people." Thought that was pretty interesting.
Oh, that's a great one. It really captures that feeling of like how ideas can almost take possession of us.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that saying, you are what you eat, but like for our minds.
Right.
Instead of food, it's like we're consuming these ideas and they're like changing us.
In Dostoevsky, in Demons, he's looking at how that plays out, but on a societal level.
Oh, okay. So it's not just like individual. It's like,
It's like, how do these ideas shape the course of history? And how do they impact the way whole groups of people interact with each other?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so what's going on in Russia at the time?
Well, one of the big things is this shift where the intellectual class starts to become this new, like, source of truth, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's like people are looking for something to believe in, right?
Exactly. And it's like a vacuum, because society's moving away from traditional religious authority.
So it's like a trade-off, huh? Religious authority for these new intellectual leaders.
Yeah, and Dostoevsky seems to be saying, look, you got to be careful because any source of truth, even one that claims to be, rational and progressive, it can become dogmatic if you're not careful.
Dogmatic, yeah. So not necessarily a good thing.
Right. And that's where the video essayist brings up this idea of feedback mechanisms. Like in engineering, if you build a bridge with the wrong calculations, it collapses. There's a direct consequence.
Oh, like immediate feedback.
Yeah. But in some academic fields, that feedback loop, it's much longer. Or sometimes it doesn't even exist.
So you're saying it's like ideas can just float around?
Yeah, they can exist without being tested in the real world.
Ooh, that's kind of dangerous, right?
And that's a key point the essayist is making. And Dostoevsky, he illustrates this perfectly through a character in the book, Stepan Trofimovich. He's like, this Russian scholar. Big reputation, talks a big game about enlightenment and progress, but he hasn't really achieved anything concrete.
He's all talk, no action, huh?
Yeah, it's like the classic armchair intellectual.
I think I know a few people like that.
Probably all of us do.
Yeah.
But, this disconnect between theory and practice, it's something the video essayist highlights as being really crucial. It's not enough to have great ideas, you got to put them into action. And the essayist uses this really cool analogy, talking about the spread of ideas. It's like the growth of a seed.
Yeah. So it starts small.
Yeah, takes root at the top, maybe among like intellectuals and thinkers, and then it spreads down deeper and deeper into different levels of society.
Kind of like a trickle-down effect.
Exactly. And it captures how an ideal, whether it's good or bad, can permeate a whole culture over time.
It changes everything.
It shapes behaviors, attitudes. It even affects like the very structure of how society functions.
Yeah.
And this is where things get interesting, I think, because the essayist then looks at this generational conflict that Dostoevsky sets up in the novel.
Okay, so who are we talking about?
We've got Stepan Trofimovich, the older generation,
Right.
He represents all those ideas we were talking about.
Right.
And then there's his son, Peter, who represents the younger generation. And they're inheriting all this stuff, but they're seeing it through their own lens,
Yeah. So like each generation interprets and applies those ideas differently. Makes sense.
Exactly. And Dostoevsky shows us how Peter's generation takes that critique of hierarchies, the one their parents had, and they radicalize it
Ooh, they take it to the extreme.
to the point where it becomes violent. Yeah.
It's like they're saying, okay, we see the problems, but we're not just going to sit around and talk about it.
Right. Like they're taking action.
But it doesn't go so well, huh?
No, it kind of backfires. And this is where Dostoevsky's warning becomes super relevant. He's showing us that just tearing down the old hierarchies, like by force, doesn't automatically lead to a better world.
You don't just get like instant utopia.
Not exactly. Often what happens is you just create this power vacuum and someone else steps in to fill it. And sometimes the new power structure is even worse than the old one.
So you're trading like one form of oppression for another.
Yeah, it's like that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You start out trying to make things better, but it can easily go wrong.
You end up in a worse place than you started.
Exactly. And Peter, the son in the novel, he becomes like this scary example of what can happen when someone takes advantage of that power vacuum. There's this chilling scene where he's bragging about how he can manipulate his followers into doing anything he wants.
Oh, wow. So he's like a cult leader or something.
Yeah, kind of. He's like, I could get them to walk through fire if I wanted to. All I have to do is accuse them of disloyalty.
Yikes. That's intense.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me think about stuff we see happening today, like cancel culture and all that.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's like everyone's so afraid of saying the wrong thing, of being ostracized.
They're walking on eggshells all the time.
Yeah, it creates this atmosphere where people are afraid to speak their minds or to disagree.
So it's like this pressure to conform.
Exactly. And it's all driven by this fear of being judged or attacked. But, even though this conversation's been pretty heavy, the video essays does offer some hope.
Oh, good. I was wondering where the light at the end of the tunnel was.
They talk about how Dostoevsky offers an antidote to these destructive ideas, these demons that can possess us.
Okay, I'm curious. What is it?
He points to creation, to the act of building and nurturing, as a way to combat this negativity. And he specifically highlights family and having children as like the ultimate act of creation.
So it's about choosing life, choosing hope, even in the midst of all this chaos.
Exactly. And the video essayist builds on that, saying it's not just about individual choices, but about the values of entire cultures. Cultures that embrace life, that celebrate creation and growth, they tend to do much better in the long run.
And what about the cultures that embrace nihilism and destruction?
Well, they tend to suffer. They don't have that same life force, that same energy for building a better future.
It's like they're consumed by their own negativity.
Yeah, they get stuck in this cycle of destruction and despair. And it makes you wonder, where are we headed as a society? Are we choosing creation or destruction?
Yeah, it's like, are we going to go down that road of despair? Or, are we going to actually try to build something better? It makes you think,
It really does. And throughout our deep dive, I've been thinking about this idea of like idea literacy.
Idea literacy.
Yeah, like just as we need literacy to understand written language.
Right, to read.
To read.
Yeah.
We need a kind of literacy to navigate the world of ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we need the tools to be able to analyze them.
Yes. Analyze them. Evaluate where they're coming from.
See different perspective.
Exactly. And ultimately, make those choices about which ones we embrace and which ones we question.
Yeah, I like that. So it's not just about like blindly accepting everything.
No, it's about being an active participant in this whole world of ideas.
And Dostoevsky, he gives us so much to think about.
He really does. Like, Demons was written so long ago, but it feels incredibly relevant to our lives right now.
Yeah, it's like he's speaking directly to us. It's a reminder that ideas, they have power.
And that we have a responsibility to use that power wisely.
So it's not just about the ideas themselves, it's about how we engage with them, right? And that starts with each of us individually. We're not just passive consumers of information.
We have a choice, right?
Exactly. We can choose to think critically, we can question assumptions, we can be open to different perspectives.
Or we can just kind of go along with the crowd.
Yeah, just accept whatever's popular at the moment. But I think Dostoevsky is cautioning us about what happens when we do that.
When we just let ourselves be swept away by ideology.
Yeah, when we stop thinking for ourselves. He's calling us to be more discerning, to be more vigilant about the ideas that are shaping our world.
It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
I agree. What really sticks with me is this idea that we have a choice. We can be possessed by ideas or we can possess them.
We can understand them.
Yeah.
Use them for good.
Exactly. Well, hey, for our listeners who are interested in checking out Dostoevsky, we'll have a link to the video essay and some other resources in the show notes.
Definitely check it out. It's a great starting point for exploring these ideas further.
And I would encourage everyone, if you're feeling brave, dive into Demons.
It's a challenging book.
But it's a rewarding one.
Oh, absolutely. It'll stay with you.
It makes you question everything, like what do you believe in and why? And how do those beliefs shape your actions? It's a really powerful read.
It is.
Well, that's it for our deep dive today.
Keep those minds engaged.
And remember, don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to challenge the ideas that are shaping your world.
See you next time.